Okay, Nicola, guess where are we?
We are at...
Which fence are we at?
We're at the money fence. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And we have got Roger back. So, hello, everybody, and welcome.
And Tash.
Yeah, and Tash.
And
We love
Sam,
to-
our
and
producer
Sam.
too.
We're all
Yeah.
family in
We
here.
are.
So welcome to Over the Back Fence and another episode. And because we've actually missed you for a while there, Roger. But we're taking control. We need to know more about the finances with clarity and confidence. Well, we have our favourite money man in the studio, the talented Roger Montgomery, the founder and chairman of Montgomery Investment. And he's the guru.
He is the guru in more ways than one. It's I rang Tash I think last week and I said, "What the hell? Roger's incredible. I've been watching and following your Instagram."
Oh, yes.
And I have to be honest, and as you well know, because you have really been a guardian angel for me through my divorce with my finances, but it's really bizarre. I know you, and Nicola and I interview a bit, but on the Instagram, it's like I'm learning more from that than anything.
That's interesting.
And I've found that fascinating
Yeah.
because I'm a bit of a flick with Instagram, but it was what I'm learning from you on your Instagram is things such as, there's one you talk about elbow and just, immigration and how that's affecting, the intergenerational inequality.
Oh, yes, the inequality.
Yes.
So the job I think I have on Instagram is just to bring that.
Guys,
And
so
you
listen
to
to him on
so,
Bring
Instagram.
that to light.
So
Yeah.
you do that well, and it's
Yeah.
not now. It is on the news, and the big sort of thing is the big question is, are we in a recession?
Well-
I mean, because it certainly feels like one.
Well, the fact that you're saying that, if you say it feels like a recession, it is a recession.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
Right? So if your experience is that things aren't booming, well, then they're not booming.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
that.
Personally. Yeah.
Personally. Now, the
Yeah.
stats are...
That makes sense.
The stats are that in aggregate, we aren't in a recession. But the reason we're not in a recession broadly is because the government keeps bringing in more people. And that masks over.
Really?
Yeah,
No, I've not heard that before.
by bringing in more people, they're growing the pie, they're growing the economy, and it masks the fact that on an individual basis, on a per capita basis, which is what that means, we are in recession. We have been for a while. So if you feel like you can't afford as much as you could last year or the year before that, or you feel like your wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living or keeping up with the cost of a mortgage, or house prices are getting away from you, guess what? You are individually going backwards. And statistically, on an individual basis, we've been in recession for a while now. But it's masked by the fact that we're importing more people, for this big Australia ideology, and that's masking the per capita recession.
The
that we've been in.
reality of
so
it.
So it's
you
interesting,
know?
without even realising it, when you said it certainly feels like
Yes.
it, well, on an individual basis, for most people, it does feel like we're in a recession, and that's your measure.
Yeah, well, it's
So
interesting
we're-
because you look at the
so
price
are we?
of coffee, so, like...
We'll come back to
I,
that.
I think on the weekend I paid something like over $8.50 and I thought, you're kidding. And it used to be so if you're with a group of friends walking and you're shouting everyone a coffee. Now it's actually a big hit that we actually, and going out to dinners and going
true.
like that, now we all pay individually. It used to be, I'll get this one or you
Yes.
get that one. Supermarkets, I'm seeing it and I've done it
Yeah.
myself going, I didn't realise it was that expensive. Actually, no, I'm not going to pay that. And
Glass of
and I'll
wine.
be, and I'm not embarrassed to say it either, because
No.
it's sort of like going,
Well,
this is what it's like.
Can we just touch on we'll come back to the, are we,
Yes,
we
yes.
are, yes, we are on an per capita basis, on an individual basis, we're in a recession, but it's masked by the immigration, and that's why collectively, in aggregate,
So we
we're
are,
not.
but it's an illusion.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Now, talking about supermarkets for a minute,
Yes,
the latest
please.
soapbox,
Love it.
which I think is,
No, I love this.
there's going to be something that Coles is already advertising and they'd like to introduce, and it has to be banned, and that is surveillance pricing. So surveillance pricing, I don't know if you, in any of the supermarkets you've gone to, you've seen little electronic LED price tags?
Yep.
Have you seen those?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, they're in some
Where was
supermarkets.
I?
They're not everywhere.
No, it was actually.
I think I might have
It
seen
was
them
in
on.
Wallara.
But on hair care stuff and sort of maybe
Well, they're-
on
Yeah.
that
The
sort of
supermarkets
stuff,
would-
So what's that?
toiletries.
Okay, so the supermarkets are saying we're introducing this so that we can focus on service. I don't know quite what that
Me
means.
either.
Service in the
It just went
supermarket.
over my head.
Yeah, correct. There's less and less service in a supermarket.
hello.
You can't
Yeah.
find anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you do find them, they're stacking shelves and don't know what you're talking about anyway. So they don't. They're like, I don't know where the deli is.
Yeah.
I'm in
Yeah.
this section.
Yeah, I'm in the biscuit
Yeah,
section.
I'm
Leave
in
me alone.
biscuits. I'm stacking
I've got
biscuits.
10 boxes here.
That's a favourite section. I'd hang in the biscuit section too.
Seriously.
Anyway, okay, so this pricing technology or this labeling technology, what it will allow what's called surveillance pricing. Now, in Maryland and California, it's been banned. In New York, in the United States, they've allowed it, but supermarkets have to disclose where it's being used,
but
which
what
may
is
as well
it?
be.
Can you explain?
So,
It's
okay.
like, I don't actually
don't
get
understand
the...
So imagine this. You walk into a supermarket today and 300ml bottle of mineral water is $3.50. Tomorrow, it's 45 degrees outside and you go in to get your mineral water and it's $6 because they know
supply
that
and
everyone
demand.
wants to go in because it's really hot outside. Or let's
Is
say
that
you're
legal?
the...
That's not legal, though.
Well, it is at the moment. There's no regulation to...
I think there is some regulation. Isn't Woolworths just been pulled over the coals?
No, that's different. That's for fake discounts. That's about the
Okay.
fake discounts. So that's where they've been.
But if they can pull them over the coals for that, can't they pull them over the coals
well,
for this?
yes, but let's just ban the technology because it'll be abused.
It's good to call this out and make us all aware because more and more
Totally.
people know.
I'll give you some
about
other
that.
examples. I'll give you.
Yes.
So let's say you've got a Flybuys card, right, which you happily use to get your discount. You're just sharing all your data with the supermarket. By the way, that's the fuel for surveillance pricing.
Interesting.
That's the fuel. So if you've just had a baby
Interesting.
and you tap your Flybuys card and then you go and buy nappies and formula,
Yeah.
they know the next time you come into the store that you're going to be buying nappies and formula. Now, if they could track your phone in the store, which they'd like to be able to do if you've got the app, right, they will raise the price on you when you go to order nappies and formula. It'll be a higher price for you.
What?
Think about this. Let's say the trains are on strike and nobody can go to a different supermarket to the one that's closest to them. They know that you live in the local area because they know where you live because of your Flybuys card. You come in, you get charged more because they know you can't go anywhere else. There's going to be lots and lots of ways
Can
to
I say
abuse-
it's a bit like
This
an
is-
Uber? You know how
Uber already do it, surge pricing.
Surge pricing.
Surge
It's
pricing.
Sort of a
Yes.
similar thing
Yes.
in how we hear it.
Your battery's about to go flat and you're in the
Yeah.
supermarket. They know
Yes.
you want to rush out of there and get home as quick as you can. You're not suddenly sensitive to price anymore. Prices go up, right? So they can do
Wow.
that. Imagine that. Imagine individual pricing, not to serve you, but to handicap you and abuse you and get the most at. They're not going to charge what the thing is worth, or based on a margin that they've calculated. They're going to charge based on what they think you can afford or what they think you can pay. It's a disaster. And it's terrible. And I think you wouldn't expect a fund manager to be coming out saying, "Hey, I'm not advocating for companies to make more profit, but I think the societal cost is greater than the marginal gain to the supermarkets."
Remarkable.
And
You know,
who can actually control this, Roger? Like,
Well, it's government. Government
Okay,
needs to
so,
basically
well-
ban the technology.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's people power.
I'm glad you
sort of
brought it to the
really,
fore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you for
anyway, I
bringing
only
it to the
thought
fore.
about it because
No.
I'm looking at it at the moment, and you mentioned supermarkets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so because we're just sort of saying, with that, and all the other things, like with subscriptions, like Netflix and all those things.
We're already in a-
are going.
we're
actually,
already
I
in a
might cut
cost-
that
I might
out.
think about it.
We're
Yeah.
already in a cost of living crisis.
Yes.
This just makes it worse. We've already talked about the government doing what they're doing to actually make the cost of living harder, costing us all more with their policies. And then supermarkets want to introduce technology. Airlines have already been doing it. For example, I know...
Of course they
100%.
do.
You already
Peak
know.
time,
Believe me.
double the airfare.
As you know, I've got a place at Hamilton Island. I just know I do not go at certain times of the year because I know they're going to
It's like,
double and
but
triple.
it's worse
rents,
than
holiday
that.
rents, you
It
put them
really
up,
irritates
you know?
me.
They
Sam.
use cookies.
It makes me
Let's bring
mad.
one
Yeah, I was
Sam
going to
in.
say, it's even if you search a flight and then you go back the next day and search the same flight, it's more because you searched it. It's in your Google
Oh,
history.
stop.
So I do it
So-
in an incognito window
I give up.
with
Are you
no
joking?
cookies.
So you've got to search the
promise
wrong
you.
one.
And I promise
oh
you,
my
Sam,
goodness.
That's crazy.
When you look up a flight, if you guys looked up the same flight as Sam, you'd
Yeah.
get a different price to
Oh,
Sam.
They know I'm cheap.
I love it.
No, I said you
just
wouldn't be
mad.
bad.
You're going to be
Crazy.
more.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
She's gonna, okay, so
Let's
is this-
get into.
Yeah, so I just want to know that with the
nuts and
global
bolts,
thing too,
yeah.
is this all happening alongside what's happening globally, Roger?
And look, why she
Let's see
mentions that, like at the moment, like wherever you turn, whether it's radio, whether it's television, your internet, your feed, it is oil, it's Trump, it's Iran, it's the global economics. You know, there's a huge fear factor out there for all of our listeners, including all of us in this studio. Can you say or do something to try and calm us all down a bit? I know that's a really big whopper. Nicola's talking
Yeah, it's
globally.
true, yeah.
I'm talking like globally too, but more specifically, what's washing over us. But like, is there any way we can sort of fathom our way through
It's the
this?
headlines, isn't
Well,
it?
firstly, the
like
stock
mud.
market. Firstly, the stock market's at all-time highs in the United States. The Australian market hasn't done as well.
No.
And well, I've
And
talked
up and
previously about the reasons for that.
Yes.
The Australian market, we have a tax regime in Australia that means dividends aren't double taxed. So when a company pays dividends, the company tax is already paid on it. So you don't pay the tax again at that rate that's already been paid. Consequently, there are franking credits that are available that the people who are on a lower tax rate than the company tax rate can use. Now, what does that mean? It just means that the franking credits that are accumulated when a company pays tax on its profits, they're not worth anything to the company. They're only worth something to people who are paying a lower tax rate than the company tax rate. So what companies in Australia do is they tend to pay a very large proportion of their profits out as a dividend. So about 80% of the top 100 companies' profits are paid out as a dividend or thereabouts, and it's been rising over the years. And that means if 80% of profits are paid out, only 20% are retained to grow the business. In the United States, they don't have that tax system, and so a larger proportion of the profits are kept inside the company to grow the business. And so consequently, if you look at the performance of the S&P 500, for example, or the NASDAQ, it's performed much better over the long term than the Australian market. And that's because companies can retain profit for growth over there. Now, in Australia, they could get around it. What they could do is they could have I don't want to get into this, but a renounceable rights issue, and they could replace the money they paid out as a dividend, but they tend not to do it because it's a bit costly and so on. So anyway, there's a fundamental reason why the US market is at all-time highs right now and the Australian market isn't. And people can say, oh, it's because of mining or it's because of AI and blah, blah, blah. There's always a thematic at the time, but behind that is a fundamental or what we call a structural difference. And that structural difference will mean that companies in the US have the ability to grow by retaining profits that in Australia they're not. The tax doesn't incentivise them to do that. Right. So, and they tend to be a lot more mature businesses in Australia anyway, like the banks. They don't really have room to grow that much. So your question was, what comfort can I give you with all of these bad
Fear
things
factor.
going on?
Yeah.
First thing is the stock market is at all-time highs, but I agree with you.
In Australia?
No, in
America,
the US.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got room
yeah.
to grow here.
Now, if everyone in the stock market was worried about all the things that you just cited, Trump, AI, war, higher interest
Oil.
rates,
Yeah.
oil, cost
Dire
of living,
Straits, I call
Yeah.
it Dire
Dire
Straits.
Straits.
That's a
Not
good
Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah, not the Strait of Hormuz, but
Dire
Dire Straits.
Straits, don't you? You might come to a little sing-along now.
If we, oh dear, I'll just leave the room for a minute.
Exactly.
Money
Is there-
song.
oh dear. Oh no, she's got a
dear.
good voice.
So cute.
I'm sure you have.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Is it Sultans of Swing?
After a few drinks,
You know?
Rob. Not after a Barocca.
we all sound
Yeah.
good after a few drinks. We all think
Well,
we
we
do
think we
anyway.
do
That's
anyway.
right.
We've got a bit of that music in
Therein
the
lies the
backgrounds. I like
problem.
Dire Straits, you know. But
So-
but it
So
feels
go
like
on.
Dire
So
Straits.
we're
We are
feeling like,
reactive.
Yeah. So what I would say is there's, you can always, and we've talked about this before, you can always diversify. So you don't have to be exposed just to the stock market.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I talked about on one of my Instagram posts about another research report that came out that promoted a scenario or posited a scenario where property prices could fall as much as 40% in Australia. And I came out and I thought people would really appreciate it. I said, look, it's probably never going to happen, and here's why. And I talked about why the banks and the financial system are incentivised not to let that happen, why the government's incentivised not to let that happen, and why the RBA and APRA are incentivised not to let that happen. But what was interesting is all the comments, and this is what I'm discovering about social media, I didn't get comments from people going, yeah, I agree with you. I got people saying, you watch, it's going to happen.
Right.
You know, they're coming down 40%. Mark my words. You know, it's going to happen. It was just.
You justify it so well in your post.
Well, it doesn't matter. People.
No, but you back it up.
Sure.
With evidence.
And they will.
Yeah.
You know, they'll back
You'll
up their
always get
argument.
That's the big dark, web out there in the net.
it's
And sometimes
and people mention, look, it's happened in China, it's happened in Japan, and it's happened in. But, you know, and it's happened in, you know, prices have fallen in Canada, but they've just stopped migration over there. So prices did drop. Yes, so that could happen if you want to make houses. By the way, you'll never hear a government, I know we're jumping all over the place here, but you'll never hear the government say, we are going to bring house prices down.
No.
They'll never do that. They'll hand you more money to pay the higher prices, but they won't talk about bringing house prices down. Why? Because a third of the population own their home outright. A third of the population are paying it off. They've bought one and they're paying it off with the bank, and a third don't. So 2/3 of the population don't want to see house prices fall, right? Plus, you also have what's called the wealth effect in reverse. So if people's house prices were to drop 40%, they'll stop spending, they'll stop borrowing, they'll stop buying cars, they'll stop renovating, they'll stop doing all those things.
The economy
Businesses would
suffers.
collapse. The economy.
So they won't let it happen.
And 60-something% of the banks in Australia, their balance sheets are residential mortgages. So
60%.
more than.
Now that's really
More
interesting.
than. It's their biggest single asset. So they don't want to see negative equity in house prices.
Not because, are you ready, listeners? I'm quoting this, the LVR.
Yes.
All these things I'm learning from
The
Roger.
loan-to-value ratio.
Loan to value. I'm
Can you
very
please
impressed.
explain?
No, I used to shop for dresses. Now I find it quite sexy shopping for
Well, she's
bloody
obsessed with your
Rogers
Instagram.
LVRs, which is loan to value
It was
ratio.
LV, wasn't it?
Well, Louis Vuitton. God, how my life's changed. But I'm learning so much from you, Roger.
So what would happen is when banks have an 80% LVR on their mortgage books, then APRA and the RBA says your loans are safe. And if your loans are safe, then they can be efficient with their capital. They don't need to lock up more capital to back those loans to keep them safe. But if property prices fell by 10% across the board, and remember, if average property prices fell 10%, that means some property prices have fallen 20 and some have gone up by 10
Right, true.
to get an average of that.
Yeah.
So if the average fell by 10%, then the LVR goes to 88.88%, almost 90%. The loans are not considered safe anymore, and the banks have to put more capital behind them, and that means they're less efficient. They can't pay as much in dividends. Their return on equity goes down. Their ability to grow credit slows, and so that's not good for their shareholders. So the APRA doesn't want to see it. The financial system doesn't want to see it. The banks don't want to see it. They will. So think about this.
Intervene.
So
it's actually, well, Diane, you're
can't-
saying
there are
about
scenarios-
reassurance.
Yeah, it's backup.
already you are reassuring us because if you just, it's like you've even said, and tune back to other episodes of Over the Money Fence because it's so good. But you hear all these news and you're sort of hearing that with the prices, and you're sort of saying, I'm fearful on that, but you're calming it because we are reactive. A lot of people are instantly like that.
Naturally at the moment.
Whereas it's
too.
but that's just, it's
Prices
calm to
prices
hear that.
can fall 10% or 15%.
Yes.
They can.
Yes.
And there's not a lot that the government
We
or
can
the banks
absorb
can
that.
do about that. But I'm talking about when a prognosticator or forecaster comes out,
Love that.
comes out and says
Oh, it's
price is going to decline 40%.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you all the reasons why some pretty prominent entities and organisations in Australia would do everything that they can to stop that from happening. From interest rate cuts to special loans to the banks to help them, 0% loans to help get them lending again, like they did during COVID. And remember, during COVID, we had something like 4 million people out of work that couldn't pay their mortgage.
And they stopped it, didn't
the
they?
banks
They
just
put
said, have a holiday.
moratorium on it.
Yeah, we'll just have a holiday on
And you can
paying
actually
off your...
withdraw
enough.
money because I remember being in that situation as well and flying for the airlines, and we're all sort of stood down like with the world, and that was your job flying. But then all of a sudden, if you needed to, you didn't have to be at a certain age, that you could actually access, I think it was 10K from your your super.
Yeah.
And then I think when there's the next financial year, you could do it again. Now, if you chose not to, is probably best if you don't have to. But if some people in need could do that. So
it's remarkable they actually stopped payments for your mortgages.
They gave you a holiday
actually
on
forgot
repayments.
That.
Yeah.
And when I was listening, I went, so there is many ways that the government can intervene because with this fear factor, everyone goes down the rabbit hole and you get sucked into the drain.
So two things.
So
don't
you're
sell a
pulling me
property.
out.
All I'm saying to people who think, I saw a forecast that property price is going to fall 40%.
Yeah.
Don't sell because you think that's going to happen. It probably won't. And number two, if you're waiting for a 40% decline to buy, you're going to be waiting potentially a very long time.
Now, just repeat that.
Yeah, if you're waiting for a 40%
you're going to be waiting
to buy, you could be waiting a very long time.
You mightn't be around to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's reassuring too.
And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, what if it does happen? Well, pull out all stops to buy.
I was just about to say that. But you're similar with shares too. When something drops, you're like, great,
Yes.
let's get out there and
Absolutely.
buy.
Well, so at the moment,
it's reassuring.
At the moment, we've got
I agree.
we've got the oil price going up,
Yeah.
right? And so everyone's rushing to buy electric vehicles. Now is precisely the time to buy a diesel.
Yes, I get it.
Not an EV, right? Now's the time to do the opposite.
Everything's
if you can
relative.
if anyone wants to sell their diesel cheap, give me a call, because I'll be happy to buy that. Put it aside, wait for oil prices to drop again, which they will in 12 months or 18 months.
Or less.
We don't know, but they will, and I'll be very glad to have bought that car very cheaply.
Tell you what, that is gold.
I love your
hearing that. I just
mythology.
think that's good. Actually, what is happening with gold? I know we're off topic there, but that's really good advice. Sort of hearing that, So, is it all doom and gloom out there?
I don't
or,
think so, because
That's the big thing.
there's a lot to
big
worry
question.
about.
Yes, yeah.
And people in my industry like to create. People in my industry, they like to create environments where you feel you need us.
Yes, yeah.
Only we can interpret what's going on in the world, and we can help you navigate your money. Here, pay us a fee. That's. But I remember a famous quote from Charles Munger, who sadly passed away. He was Warren Buffett's right-hand man. And he said this. He said, and I'm quoting. He said, "What witch doctor has gained fame and notoriety by prescribing 2 aspirin?" In other words, they've got to do the big dance and the secret rain dance, and we're going to put these beads on you, and then we're going to get these crystals, and we're going to wave these feathers, and if we do all these
You're
things,
getting carried away,
you'll
right?
feel,
Loving it.
you'll feel
It's
better.
fabulous.
You'll feel better.
I love it.
It's like the showman.
I know.
Hugh
But
Jackman.
really,
I love
all he
it.
needed to
Tom
do was give
Cruise
2
to
aspirin. But
Hugh
guess
Jackman.
what? You're not going to get famous prescribing 2 aspirin, right? You've got to say there's a secret to all of this, and I've got it, and you don't. You need me. But in reality...
Right.
In reality, there's always going to be a dark cloud on the horizon. There's always going to be something we can point to say, just watch out for that. That could be a problem. And that's true right now. There are lots of problems.
Yes.
And I do worry that this year being a midterm election year in the United States, the averages are that between late April and October, the average has been negative in a midterm election year. So the stock market could start declining between now and October. That sounds very precise, which probably means it's going to be precisely wrong. But it does mean that there's a lot more volatility. Trump is unpredictable. AI is expensive. The war could go on for a lot longer, particularly, for example, if the Strait of Hormuz is opened, for example, but Iran is blockaded, then Iran will continue attacking infrastructure sites around the Middle East, and that could mean energy prices go up, and or the war escalates, and so that that might be a problem that the markets maybe haven't anticipated at the moment. So there are all these things, and I think Australia, the RBA, while we're recording this, is going to be making a decision about interest rates.
Yes.
Sorry?
Up to 4.35.
Oh, so it's gone up again?
Gone up.
There you go.
So it's gone
tell
up
us
again?
about that, Roger.
Well, so rates have gone up now 3 times in very quick succession. 4.35. So what that means is people's mortgages are going to go up.
Yeah.
They're going to have less money in their wallets for spending elsewhere, so less discretionary spending. That means it's going to be tougher for retailers. Retailing is going to slow down. And the interesting thing is...
Isn't it tough enough for them?
It's going to be harder to borrow money because when banks lend, they have to add 3% on to the current mortgage rate and see whether you can afford that. Right? And so let's say the current mortgage rate was 6%, they calculate what you can pay based on 9% or what you can borrow based on 9% repayments. And so that means there's going to be less money for building, renovating and buying. And so there's going to be less work for construction. And residential construction is one component of the construction industry. The construction industry in Australia is the biggest employer. The second biggest employer, the second biggest is, sorry, I got that wrong. Healthcare is first.
Yeah.
Healthcare is first, construction is second, and retail is third. So your second and third biggest employers are going to be directly negatively impacted by this additional rate rise. So that's going to really slow the economy down some more. Now, I worry about this next budget as well. I don't usually care about the budget. When the media asks me about the budget, as a fund manager, my answer is always the same. There'll be another one next year. There's always a budget. But this one's interesting because the honeymoon is over for Labor and they know it. And so they need to do some really big things to appeal to their voter base because the honeymoon's over. And it doesn't look like they're doing such a great job of managing their finances. And so consequently, they need to show that they'll either be throwing money out there for helicopter money for people to help them out. It'll be interesting to see what they do. They'll play Robin Hood, taxing, inverted commas, the rich. By the way, the rich are the billionaires, not people with a mortgage
Not the mums and dads.
on one investment property.
Exactly.
They're not rich. They've got a mortgage on an investment property that, by the way, is negatively geared, which means they're losing money that they have to pay with their money out of their wallet, by the way. Negative gearing is a strategy where you have to lose $1 to get back 50 cents. Right, that's what negative gearing is. You don't
It's
get.
good we're discussing
It is good
property.
because I remember my dad used to always talk about negative gearing, and I never understood what he was saying. So I
listen to Roger on
I know.
Instagram.
So I should have. I didn't
Or on
listen to
the
my dad, but
podcast.
now
So
I'm learning. I'm
Negative
listening
gearing
to Roger.
negative gearing is very simple to understand. If I buy an investment property, a property that's generating an income, and after adding up all the income but subtracting all the costs, including interest on the mortgage, if there's a loss there, I will get, depending on my tax rate, if my tax rate's the highest rate, let's say it's just 50%, I will get 50% back of that loss, right, as a refund. And so I've still lost money. I've still lost half of it, but I get some of it back. And what that does is it encourages me to invest for my retirement so that I'm not a burden on the pension, on the government pension.
Exactly.
That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Self-funded,
Why wouldn't you look after them if that's the case?
That's why it's
Right.
called
Yes.
self-funded
Self-funded,
retirement.
So why we're on
self-funded,
property,
yes.
I mean, we were talking about shares when to buy, obviously when they're down. Do you think now is a good time to be buying property, or do you think just wait a little bit longer?
Well,
as interest rates
the
rise?
difficulty with property, and this is why you'd need a property expert from every suburb in Australia, because everyone will have a different answer.
Yeah, I love
Property
that. I
is-
love that response.
Yes.
It's just like the stock market isn't one thing. We talk about the stock market being at record highs. It's being dragged up by a handful of companies, but a lot of companies are at record highs. And it's the same in the property market. We could say, look, property's going to go up, but there'll be some suburbs where property doesn't go up.
Correct.
There'll be lots of suburbs where it doesn't go up. Property, average property prices have gone up. Let's say they've gone up 7 or 8% in aggregate around Australia over the last 7 or 8 years. But if you go to Noosa, they've
Yes,
gone
of
up
course.
300 or 400% in that time. They haven't gone up
True.
7% a year.
That
They've
is
gone up
true.
25%
Yeah.
a year or more. So it depends where.
But everything's relative, isn't it? I mean,
Well, it's
no matter whether you've got money or not, you're still at the moment probably thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Rather than, I
Well,
want to
that's
buy
actually
it.
interesting because that's
Yeah.
sort of some of the we've had that from our
Sometimes-
listeners too. So keep the questions coming
Oh, yeah,
in because
actually,
because that is
we've got
actually.
some
I will
great
say
questions.
I will say one thing about
that.
property. When I first married Kerry, she already owned a property. In her mid-20s, she and a friend had bought a place together, and I didn't because I was scared property could go down, and so I had a cash balance earning interest, but I didn't have any property, and so it was scary to buy property for the first time. But the reason for buying it wasn't because I thought I would make money. We ended up doubling or made more than double our money on that first house, and it's gone up way more than that since. But I realised my wife wanted a place she could call her own to raise a family, and that was more important than whether I thought property was going up or down. So there'll be some people who are listening to this. They might be young, they might be getting married, they might be having children, they might be thinking, oh no, I'll wait for property to go down. If property is the thing that you need to feel safe, and property is your own house,
Love Roger.
I know.
and your own house is the thing that you need to feel like you've made a home and you're making a family, then prioritise that.
Oh,
It's not about money.
I
And
love that
that's
logic.
so true. My mum used to say, get a roof over your head, Nicola, if
Yeah.
you can, and have that. And,
So
and not
true.
everyone can.
No.
But it's just sort of a reassuring thing. And also, it's not a priority. Some people don't want to have
That's
own
fine.
property.
And that's fine.
That's good on them.
Yeah,
That's
all I'm
great.
saying is
a
sometimes it's not a
personal thing.
financial decision.
No.
So I'm not judging you
No.
for making a decision that is emotional or that is for the betterment of your family unit. Go ahead and do that. That's fine.
Yes, yeah.
But so when we talk about property, I'm not talking about what you should do. I'm speaking in general terms about
absolutely.
the market.
Yeah.
I do think that there are two major drivers of property prices in Australia, what we call in our industry explanatory variables. There are two major explainers. Number one is migration. And just as we saw in Canada recently, they stopped migration, property prices came down, right? There's a clear link there. A friend of mine did a PhD paper on property prices in Australia for decades and decades. I think he went back to the 1960s, and he said migration was the single biggest explanatory variable. So that's number one. Number two is access to credit. How easy is it to get money? Now, I remember years where banks were jumping over each other to give people money to buy an investment property, and their investment loan books were growing faster than their residential loan books. So APRA came in and said, that's got to stop. We're going to make it harder for you to lend money. Your loan books, your investment property loan books can't grow by more than 10% a year. So then banks were restricted in terms of the
interesting.
credit that they provided to borrowers for investment properties. That slowed down growth of investment properties.
I'm really glad that APRA's there.
Yes.
Yeah,
in
and
these
so-
times.
And so when interest rates go up, access to credit goes down because it's more expensive. And so interest rates have just risen. We just talked about
Yeah.
that a moment ago. And
Hot off the
consequently,
press, Tash.
hot off the press, exactly. And so consequently, that's going to restrict property growth in the short or medium term until that reverses again. And so that's just the reality. Prices will adjust to the ease of access to credit and to the migration story. They're the two things that matter most.
Okay, we've
so-
got to get
so
into some
it's interesting. Well, you've
listeners'
sort of really
questions.
tapped on that sort of
Do you
as
wanna
well. But yeah, I
ask some
will.
of
So it's sort of
those?
like now there's just saying, should I still be spending or travelling or pulling back?
Okay, so it's
know.
so that's an amazing
Had a few
question
of these
because
ones.
in terms of coincidence, one of my adult children has just moved to an Australian coastal resort. He works in the tourism industry, and he said, "Dad, I'm going to get all my pay put into Mum's bank account, and then she can just give me what I need when I need it. Otherwise,
so
I'll spend it all.
temptation, I get.
Yeah.
Believe
So we
me, I
talked in
get
one
it.
of our early potties last year about paying yourself first.
Yes.
Right? And that's what he's doing. He's paying himself first.
Listens to Dad, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he hasn't for the last year and a half. He's, but
Well, it's all a balance, isn't it?
But so he's now working, as you said, in the travel industry.
Yes.
He's paying himself first. So
Yeah.
he's travelling. He's
So
doing
he's
what
going to
he
be sort of
wants.
pulling back then.
But he's
is it
pulling
right?
back.
Yeah.
He's pulling back
He's
at the
listening.
moment.
I love it.
And I think that's wise.
Great
Yes,
question.
yeah.
Because
that one.
everything else is going up,
Yeah.
and he's finding it much more expensive than what he realised. You know, when the kids are little, they, you know, everything just is paid for them by their parents, and as they get older, they realise that you know, money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work really hard for it.
Sure do.
And
And
you
there's a-
appreciate it.
and you appreciate it more. So anyway, he's making
the
some
next
wise
one?
decisions
That's
because
interesting.
he wants to spend less.
Well, and just on that
Yeah,
as well too, because
yeah.
people have also been going, I'm cancelling my trip, not just because of the
Yes,
the
it's
war,
true.
but they're actually going, no,
Oh, can
I'm
I-
not spending
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
now
Can I
on
give
that
you a really
travel."
good little tool if you want to save some money at the moment?
Yes, please.
So, because a high proportion of people in Australia don't know where they don't have money for a rainy day. They don't know where the money's going to come from if something bad happens and they need $10,000. They don't have it. And so if there is a recession, if we get a recession, people start losing their jobs, employment starts going up. If that happens, well, you want to have something in reserve. So how can you start preparing for that? And you should have some money for a rainy day all the time. It should be there. So what you need to do is go back over your quarterly bank statement. Go back over the last quarter. And what I want you to do is look at every line item, everything that you've spent, and just write next to it, need or want.
Oh, all these things that I used to hear as a
So
child,
simple.
you know.
So simple.
Yeah.
Just go through every line, need or
I've got
want, need or
goosebumps.
want, need or want.
It's so simple. It's two bloody
Isn't it?
words.
And then
And then
Really?
these old-fashioned sort of thing. I
Yep.
used to hear it,
Yep.
and I used to think,
And
oh,
it's
that's
logical.
You don't have to do
Yeah,
all
you
that.
go, Dad, I'm going out
Yes,
to
you
buy
know,
a shop.
but it's
and
so good to hear
drink
that.
and
people
eat.
shop
It's
for
reality.
entertainment, which
let's
is a
let's just
disaster.
repeat it.
Okay, so get your quarterly
Want-
bank statement out.
Yeah.
Or need, am I
And
right?
want or need. And
Yeah.
then write next to everything you've spent over the last 3 months, write want or need. Was it a want or was it a need? Did you really need
I
it or
really
did you
love
want
this.
it? And then
This works for me. It's resonate.
don't spend anything on the wants for the next 3 months. You know, and that money goes into your bank account and you save it. You put it into a high yielding account and you start earning money on that and away you go.
You know what? I just think that's such excellent advice because there's people listening now going, oh, actually, I don't have that,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
$10,000 there.
Exactly.
But you know what? It's like, as you always say, start now.
Yeah.
And that's a way, if you think you haven't got it, you can create it.
I want the
Even on
couch.
the,
But
even
do
if
I
your
need it right
pay
now?
doesn't
Yeah.
go up. That's a really great way. Thank you. I
Or-
think that's
or if
really
you lose-
reassuring.
And the other one
again.
is the hard ones. There will be, look, I already know this, but there's going to be some line items where you've sort of put need and want in.
all the time.
Yes,
together.
exactly.
For me,
Yeah,
you
I
mean
know.
you I spend money
Well,
on
I do,
food,
still-
right?
Yeah.
Now I need food.
Yes.
But do I need the $25 cafe lunch?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
well,
I
maybe
need,
not.
I
It's
need
both.
red wine.
And do
I
you
need
need
red
the
wine.
olives?
Yes.
Go with the
And
wine.
people are cutting back on
Just
alcohol
have
as
the
well.
dip.
They are,
Yeah.
they
Not
are.
just for
Fascinating.
health, but
Yeah.
having a sparkling water and and having sort of like a lemon in it. So it's
Nah,
those
go
things.
wine.
Those, yeah.
So the next one is
Want or need, Di?
all of the above.
Depends on the mood.
God, did you hear me then? How it was such conviction, wasn't it? Okay, so the last question is is all of this doom and gloom, or is it just overdone?
Look, I think sometimes
Great
it's,
question, isn't
so
it?
Yeah, we
I
sort
can
of hit
answer
on
it this way.
before, but
No,
it's good
but
to
is it
hear it.
overdone? I
Well,
love
so
that
we
last
tend to-
word.
So we tend to, in investing, we tend to overestimate the short term.
Yeah.
So we tend to overestimate what's going to happen soon, and we tend to underestimate what's going to happen in the long term.
Oh,
Right?
that's good.
So we
Overestimate.
overthink
Yes.
what's going to happen now.
Underestimate.
We
Yeah.
believe it's all going to happen
Look, I'm
right
even
now.
writing
Yeah,
that
write
one.
But
that
then
one
we
down.
often don't think about how much is
And
going to happen
underestimate.
in 5 and 10 years' time.
Yeah.
A lot will be different in 5 or 10 years' time, but not much is going to be that different tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's the opposite in life, Roger. We overestimate what we can do in a day, but we underestimate what we can get done in a
That's
year.
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's the same
well,
thing.
yeah,
See,
I love
mine,
it.
Exactly the
coach.
same.
Other way
I've never
around.
heard this.
Yeah.
I love it.
This has just been
Yeah, I
so good.
know.
I think actually there was one
know.
question there too is Also,
there's
where
another one,
should
isn't
I
there?
be investing now? So if you
That's a
have
great
got
question.
that one,
Okay, so-
too,
I love this
yeah.
So
one.
we wrote I wrote a white paper actually on private credit, and I know we've talked about this before. It's interesting. We've had some people approach us who have listened to us on the podcast, and they've said, yeah, look, really interested in private credit. Then they've gone and talked to somebody in private, and they've said, oh, that's way too risky. Don't do that.
Yeah, please explain it, because I've learned it now that it's not from you guys.
Well, there are.
Yeah.
So what's happening is the advisors.
Yeah.
There are some advisors who probably haven't done their due diligence, and they've just lumped all private credit funds into the same basket and said they're all risky. That's like
Globally.
Yeah, and that's like saying that all stocks on the stock market have the same risk.
Correct.
But I promise you, No Hope Mining.
It's a great analogy.
No Hope Mining has a different risk profile to the CBA, the Commonwealth Bank. They're different risk profiles. They're both stocks on the stock market, but they're going to move very differently. And it's the same. There are private credit funds that invest in property development, and there are private credit funds that never will. There are private credit funds that are sub-investment grade, and there are private credit funds that are AA rated, the same as Macquarie Bank. So there are different private credit funds out there. So lumping them all together and just saying they're all risky, that's a mistake, and it could mean that you're missing out on $20,000 or $30,000 of extra income a year that could be paid to you monthly just because somebody has said to you, no, they're risky, don't look at it.
Can I interject? I heard you, I think it might have been the last podcast where you talked about American private credit.
Yes, there's a lot of headlines
A lot of people
out
are
about
lumping Australian private credit into American private credit. Can you just briefly
So
identify
in America,
the difference?
there's
the regulations.
very big differences in regulation. So in Australia, all the laws protect the lender. So you can very quickly put a company into administration in Australia, without court approval, for example. You can't put it into liquidation, but you can put it into administration, and you can get oversight over the management of the company so that it focuses on paying off the creditors. In America, all the assets get locked up. All of the caveats and covenants are, they're all debated in court. Nothing can be done. The other thing is, in America, private credit has been lending money to businesses based on the value of the business and based on brand and based on future cash flows. In Australia, we mostly lend on real assets. So there has to be security on the loan before a company will even get the loan. Now, there are also private credit funds that, as I mentioned earlier, lend on property development. And
Which you don't, do you?
No, we don't. And there's a very good reason for that. And then I think what
understand.
you've got to do, you asked earlier, where would you invest?
Absolutely.
The number one rule at all times is in the highest quality thing. Whatever asset class it is, whether it's shares or property or private credit or collectible cars, whatever it is, the highest quality you can afford. You want to buy the highest quality because quality will always serve you well. Junk is going to, it could give you a very quick sugar hit, but it's probably going to reverse at some stage in the future and reverse hard. Whereas quality will always serve you, either because it's got a reliable income stream or it's a brand or an asset that other people want to buy off you if things get tough for you. And so quality will always stand you in good stead.
That's interesting. It's like a rule for life in many different things
Well,
too.
with husbands
husbands, people,
Handbags.
Handbags,
your
handbags,
integrity,
jewellery.
So many things is
Private
the
credit,
quality
double
of
A rated.
the quality of your chocolate.
love
Like that
it.
you're cutting back. I still would rather have less of a good quality one than we go back to listen to our other ones because Roger tells the story about I love that chocolate game at the very start of
Will you indulge me? We've got enough time for one quick
please.
story.
Oh yeah, we
Here we
love
go,
a story.
yeah.
Yes.
I
Sam's
was
so into it.
really
Yeah,
quickly.
Yeah.
So
was
am
out-
I.
So am I. That's the thing I get lost in, Roger.
I was out
I'm
on the
oblivious to time.
I was out on the sailboard on the windsurfer, and
Of course you were.
I was tearing it up on a lake, Going really, I thought I was absolutely.
Tom's back in action.
I thought I was absolutely caning it. I was
Sorry.
planing. I
true.
was going so quick. I loved it, and I was loving it. Anyway, this guy comes past me like I was stop checking my shoelaces. He comes flying past me.
Tom wouldn't like that.
He comes flying
Tom's on
past
fire
me,
today.
absolutely caning it. And I just thought, my gosh, he's got a jet engine on the back of that
Yeah,
thing. How's he
yeah.
going so fast? Then he loops around, comes back the other way, and then does it again, passes me again. I'm thinking, oh my
How's your
gosh.
ego?
Yeah.
I was
Tom?
fine.
Yeah.
I was fine. I'm always open to learning new things.
I like that.
Anyway.
That's
He's
great.
a quality man of quality.
Same with your shares.
He ended up going to shore. So I turned around, went back to shore, and as I was pulling up and I put my sail down, I went over to him and I could see he was moving a bit differently to the person I had in my mind. He was quite a bit older, and when he turned around and he said, "I know you're going to ask me how old am I?" And I said, "I am. How old are you?" And he said, "I'm 86."
Oh,
He
stop.
was 86, and I
Well,
said,
tell me your ego kicked in then.
No. I wanted to
My
learn.
ego's kicking.
I
I'd
said,
be like,
mate, what's the secret? You were absolutely tearing
We
it
all
up there.
need
That
to
was
know.
amazing.
Inspiration.
What's the secret?
Yeah.
And he said, no alcohol and a little square of dark chocolate every day. That was his secret.
is that what he said?
Yeah.
I'll run with the dark chocolate.
I love
no alcohol, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I love
No.
that. Well, actually, Lee Holmes, Supercharged
I
Food,
love a
she's
glass
done
of
a whole
wine.
segment
I'm
on
caught.
really good the benefits of having dark chocolate. So I'm all for that.
More
and I
I
have
read
some
about
every
it.
day. So
And
It
can I just
oxygenates
ask,
the blood or something. It's pretty wild.
if anyone is interested in private credit,
Yeah.
get them to give me a call
Australian.
directly.
Yes. And we need-
Australian private credit.
I've
It's good to
explained it to so
clarify
many
that.
people, you have no idea, who have lumped Australian private credit with America.
Yeah.
Totally different.
So, one of
yeah.
the funds that we distribute in Australia is, as I said, externally, independently, AA rated. It's been paying 7.5% per year, and it pays monthly. It's not like a term deposit where you have to wait till the end.
No.
Mind you, it's not the same risk profile as a term deposit. And I just, if someone says to you, "Don't invest, it's risky," well, tell them to call me, because I would like to have a chat with them about
And,
why
and
they
you know
think
what,
it's risky.
guys?
Good.
Roger will take your
Roger
call,
is-
and you can actually talk to Roger.
Yeah.
I
Very
mean,
happy to take the call.
if he feels that you've been, not be,
So
the
please
things aren't right,
contact
he might
us
even take you to
through
lunch.
over the back fence money fence.
You too can
here.
meet Tom.
Roger as well.
Who gets
because-
Can I
taken
give them-
over by
Can I give them my
86-year-olds?
phone number?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
you can.
It's-
We'll
yeah.
have everything on our show notes as
Yeah.
well. But
It's-
please,
let me go a step further.
yes, yeah.
If someone says to you, if someone wants the white paper on private credit, or they want their advisor to read it or to call me, get them to call 02 8046 5000.
Brilliant.
Sydney,
That's easy to remember.
8046 5000.
Yeah.
I would love to speak to your advisor about private credit
Yeah.
and set them straight, because
Brilliant.
it's not one size fits all. That's really important to know.
I think
what
that's
I think about Roger, he
really
backs it up.
really good, because you're saying that when you hear things about buying shares and at the barbecue and all that stuff. So there's so many people come
barbecue.
across as if they kind of know everything as well.
true.
So, but thank you for that. Well, for everyone here, I hope you're feeling a little bit more. It's sort of like reassured in this sort of uncertain sort of world here. But
Totally.
you've certainly, as you do, you calm the farm.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, I've said it before, but go back and listen to ones. And I think a particularly good one is the 3 bucket
I
theory.
quite that a
yes.
lot.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a really good one now, don't you think
Look,
so,
and
Jonas?
also you can also sign up to Roger's rogermontgomery.com and find out more from montinvest.com, or like we've discussed in this particular interview, just follow him on Instagram, Roger Montgomery, easy peasy, Montgomery, so you
Yes.
get that right.
Yeah.
And we'll include, don't forget, we'll include all the details.
We've got it
in the
all in our show notes here. So if
which
this
is great.
episode has helped you, please share it.
Oh, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
I know. Over the money fence. And also, I want to say too, we are on YouTube. So
Yes.
subscribe, follow.
Yeah.
It's free, so
Yeah.
it's not going to, it's not one of those subscriptions there. So do that. So
I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we do, because Nicola and I talk, don't we, on and
do.
off.
And keep the questions
about
coming.
this
We love
after.
it.
Yeah.
And the
they're really great
feedback.
questions today, I must be honest.
Yeah,
They
so
were
and so
fabulous.
Roger, thank you so much.
It's a
for
pleasure,
coming
guys.
in.
Yeah, love
always
having you
always
in
love
the
chatting
I
with
could
you.
have
Sam
over the money
loves
fence
you.
every day.
Come in the
We
studio.
all do.
And Tash, we always say, well, we well behaved.
So
Take
Roger
care,
will
guys.
be back
Yeah.
and keep the questions coming.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.